Hello and welcome to the Work Inspired podcast. I'm your host, George Lucas Pfeiffer. On today's episode, we have the CEO of Titan International, Paul Reitz. He's here to talk today about people, place, culture, leadership, change, and challenge. He's full of insights. Let's not waste another second. Work Inspired starts right now. Paul, thank you so much for being here on the show with us, especially in person. I know you travel a lot, so thanks for your time and excited to have this conversation.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me here today.
For sure. So we always start off by kind of hearing the professional story of the guest that we're featuring. So who is Paul Reitz? How'd you get to where you're at today?
Well, I think everybody has an interesting story, and the paths are always different. Mm-hmm. I think if I had to look at who I am first, it does translate into the story. And who I am has been somebody that has always looked at life with my eyes wide open, trying to learn from what's going on around me. And when you do that, one of the good things is you can learn faster, and I believe in that. One of the hard things is you learn more from failures than the good moments, the winning. And so as I look at kind of who formed who I am, it's from the losses. I grew up loving sports, still love sports, too old to really play them, but just that competitive nature and loving sports, I learned a lot from some of my sporting losses. Unfortunately, over time, you forget the wins. And I think back to, I played college tennis, and I'm not going to be the old guy talking about old sports stories, but there was a particular loss where it was a good match, or important match, that was going well against a school called Butler University in Indianapolis. And I was winning easily. Everything's going great. 6-1, 5-1, 6-1, 4-1 if you know tennis. I was already starting to think ahead to winning, and I let up on the shot. The guy made a really good volley at the net, caught me off guard. He wins the point, shook me up, threw me off, and the next thing you know, I end up losing the match. Point of the story is, and it translates to some of the things of who I am, is you got to focus on the moment. As soon as you get your eye off the ball, so to speak, and you don't focus on the moment of doing the best you can in that moment, crazy things can happen. And if you ask me to remember anything else from college tennis, I don't remember anything other than that stupid point where if I'd have won it, I'd go up 5-1, then I'm serving and the match is over. And so it's things like that from sports that I feel like I've learned. And also, one of the things that we all learn from is from mentors and parents and friends. And for me, one of my important mentors was my dad. He was in a completely opposite career than I was. I went into accounting. He told me, don't go into accounting. He was in sales. And so I learned some things about relating to people from him. But one of the things that I think sticks with me about his career, and he passed away 15 years ago, is that he was afraid to take risks. So we had stability as a family, but he never took a risk. He worked at the same company for 40 years to the day he died. But it also led to my mom not taking risks with her career as well. And so as they both look back on their lives and their careers, they're always disappointed that they never took risks. And so I remember I was running for a local board back when my dad was alive. So I was young, I was 25. Somebody asked me to do it. There were 6 people up, 4 positions. I got whooped. I probably came in dead last. And my dad called me up and he said, "How did that go?" And I said, I didn't get it. And I didn't really expect to. And he goes, "Well, I don't know how you were able to not be humiliated because you lost." I said, "Dad, who cares? I tried. That's what matters, right?" And he goes, No, that's not what matters. You shouldn't have done it. You should, you put yourself out there publicly. You lost. You shouldn't have done it." And I said, "Well, I disagree. The only way I would have been a loser is if I didn't try." And again, it's that watching my dad's life, watching the impact it had on my mom, they both had master's degrees, but they're afraid to take risks with their careers. I said, with my career, I'm going to take risks. And I did. And a lot of times, it worked out. And there's quite a few hard times where it doesn't. And so in sports, I learned from taking the moment to always focus on doing your best, but sometimes you're just going to lose. Translated that into what I saw my parents do. And I said, okay, in my work career and who I'm going to be is I'm going to live every day the best I can, realize that it also means I'm going to lose and just like sports, but also not follow the same path my parents did and say, you know what, take risks. Go live your life, do the best you can. And so, I've had the support of a spouse that's allowed me to do that, because at times when you fail, you need some people that are helping you pick you up and be willing to accept that failure. So my professional story kind of follows that path. I've gone a number of different ways. Started off in accounting, got a master's degree in marketing so that I could balance, not just being an accountant with learning from the other side of the envelope. And so kind of living with my eyes wide open. I applied that to my career where I worked in marketing, but I also worked in accounting, completely abnormal.
Yeah.
But it always taught me that when I walk in the room, I can see the world from two different perspectives. And that's kind of how I followed my career. And my professional story is, I took that accounting background, controller path, got some marketing experience working in marketing departments. I reached a point when I was getting into promotional levels where they said, you got to make a decision. That's when I stuck with finance, started off as CFO here at Titan. And it's been 11 years already. Became president and then president and CEO. So
wow.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I think the part that is, been the most important for my professional story and kind of who I am is just live every moment, your eyes wide open, and do the best you can every day. And some days are going to stink, and you're going to get your ass kicked, and wake up tomorrow and try again.
There is a lot to unpack there. First of all, I never was a tennis player, but I watched Point Break. And one thing that has been, maybe it's just the editing and the show, but it seems like with tennis, and as is true with a lot of sports, momentum also matters. Mm-hmm. So like being able to be in the moment, but also recognizing that if you aren't doing that, that can change the entire course of a game or a match or a season even, So I think that's one lesson I've taken from that show and from my own sports background. Also, you talk about the risk taking, and I think some people that don't take risks are just comfortable and don't like change. Others are afraid of failure.
Yep.
And so I think your comfort level or your ability to lean into failure and expect it and learn from it probably has enabled your ability to take risks and ultimately have success. And then the third thing I took away from that was the accounting and marketing sides of your education. That's impressive. My wife is a finance and accounting, background, and then I'm on the marketing side, and they are very different. But I could see in a CEO role how having both sides of that skill set or that knowledge would be very, very beneficial to leading people and effectively an organization.
It definitely is, and I guess the other element I left out is luck. How I got that accounting and marketing background was actually luck. When I was getting my MBA, the administration came to me and said, because of your finance background, you don't need to take all the finance and economic classes. So I started looking at the list going, well, let's try a marketing course. I had a great professor. And I went, wait, I'm onto something here. I can learn something new. And then I ended up sticking with it, getting that marketing major. And so then I took that and combined it with the fact that my dad spent 40 years in sales and I got to see the world through his eyes. And I'd gone the other path and I said, okay, I think I'm onto something. If I can walk into the room and I can be able to see it from multiple vantage points, that to your point, like in your household, that are completely opposite, I think that's a skill that will end up being meaningful. And it really has. But that other piece I should add, it's luck. I didn't have a brilliant idea that I executed on. It's sort of luck fell into place for me.
Wow, that's very cool. So let's talk about Titan International for a little bit. What does the company do? I've spent some time on your website. My 2-year-old son would absolutely love all the tractors and tires. And but what does the company do? What makes you special? And then we'll start talking about culture.
What we do is somewhat special. Like you said, it is cool. I have a 23-year-old son who just graduated from college, and I notice he likes wearing Titan gear because if people do ask him what it is, it's cool. What we do is we make wheels, tires, and then we make steel undercarriage tracks that go on everything that would be off-road. So lends to larger equipment, excavators, bulldozers, ag equipment of all sizes from small to large, and then construction equipment. We are the only company in the world that does what we do for all off-road. Now, with an acquisition, we do have some products now that are going more on-road as well, and that's so that tune changes a little bit, but we do cover the full gamut of everything off-road, and it's wheels, tires, and undercarriage. So we are a niche company, and that's how we really came to be. Is our founder back in the early '80s saw an opportunity where some of the OEMs had done vertical integration with wheels and tires. Some other companies, large conglomerate companies, were doing wheels and tires off-road, but if you're doing 95% of your business on-road, the less glamorous part of the business was always off-road. And so the founder saw this niche business. He created the company in the early 80s and went public in the 1993. So we have 30 years of being a publicly traded company in this niche space that really Titan has created. Now it's interesting because we do create against companies of all sizes. We create we compete, I should say, not create. We compete against companies that are global behemoths, $20 billion plus in scale size global companies that do what we do, but their primary focus is something else. And then we compete against smaller companies that are competing more directly with us in just the off-road space. And so we've been at it for 40 years and still ticking.
What's the team like? How you guys all in one spot? Are you distributed? I know you've got the international in the title. Yeah. Tell me about how's the company set up?
Yeah, that does get complicated in manufacturing at times, and I think we fit that bill because we do large manufacturing. Sure. So what we do, we have tires that are 5 feet tall. We have steel undercarriage that weighs thousands of pounds, and so we do heavy manufacturing, which lends it with different products. So that does lend itself to be more decentralized. Okay. And I've spent a lot of time talking with other manufacturing CEOs about this topic, and I found that heavy manufacturing does become more decentralized because you need strong infrastructure at your plants. We have about 18 to 20 locations around the world. Each location is going to require engineering support, technical support. You got to have all the plant support. Then you get into kind of local finance and some of the HR, obviously. And so you end up having a lot of infrastructure at your plant level. And so when you try to centralize, especially with different products, different cultures, operating in as many countries as most large manufacturers do, it's hard. So where we have tried to centralize, we failed. So we've kind of stopped trying to centralize and said, okay, this is who we are. We're centralized with finance and legal and some of the corporate functions for the SEC reporting we have to do. But the rest of it is heavily decentralized. And so our culture needs to fit that. And culture is, as Peter Drucker has said, and we all know what he has said with that. I mean, culture is everything.
So you've got a decentralized team. Is there a process for how the team works? And I'm guessing the answer is complicated because you've got office workers, you've got manufacturing. How do your teams function? Is it hybrid? Is it remote? Is it in person? And has that changed since you started as CEO in the last 11 years?
It's evolved, but the one thing that hasn't changed, it's still all about people.
Sure. Yep.
Whether it's hybrid, whether it's during the pandemic, pre-pandemic, it's all about people. And so with your background and your experience, really what you're doing is connecting people.
Right.
And now it's just there's different modes of how you connect people. And so for Titan, that connection's everything. We operate in a way that we balance the hybrid with the in-person. We do have hybrid work. It does work, and it can work. But we also balance it with enough in-person relationships that you're able to be successful hybrid. I think being all hybrid is a challenge. And I agree with what some of the large companies are doing, like a JP Morgan, but I also have to be realistic and realize Titan's not JP Morgan. And so I can't operate the same way as JP Morgan and say, get back to the office. If you don't, you're out of a job. I need to recruit and retain in a different way. And so hybrid is now part of that. We've done it in a way, instead of centralizing how hybrid has to work, and I'm going back to that decentralized theme, we allow each business unit and even with within each function to determine what they need to do to get the job done. If they need 100% in-person work to get the job done, then that's what they do. At first, I wasn't sure if that was going to hold. That's how we started the pandemic, but now I can say 4 years later, our policy hasn't changed. There is no centralized corporate policy that says how you will work in your business unit within your function. You will find a way to get the job done. And so to this moment, I've had 0 instances where I've had to get involved. Now, I will say what is important is if I call a team meeting, if I'm in a location, you will be there in person because that sets the tone. And so I do travel every week. Again, very decentralized environment, so it's important that I'm out within the business. My CFO is expected to do that as well, and he does. But if him or I are at a place, you will be there in person. And that's how you build that relationship. That's how you build that trust that's needed so that when we are working virtual, we are working hybrid, you feel like you're connected.
I like that. You talked about the decentralization, but also the importance of culture and the people being the most important thing. Have you found ways to connect culture for the organization across all these different locations and these different ways of working, so that there is some central theme that is the Titan way?
When I became president, transitioning from CFO, I knew where the weaknesses were within our culture in our company, as you should. Nobody's perfect. Just like somebody would take my role and go, okay, here's the weaknesses behind me. I put something in place called One Titan.
Okay.
And it was critical that it was accepted, not just within our organization, but since the CEO moved into the chairman role, clearly that was important that the chairman and the board accepted the direction I was going. And I'll explain One Titan in a second, but about 6 months after I put One Titan out, what was important for me is the chairman on the phone talking about something else. And he goes, hey, by the way, I want you to know, I wish I'd have put One Titan in place a while ago. It's cool. What we needed. So that gave me the blessing to know we're on the right path. But what One Titan was about was how we really treat each other as a management team. We all walk into conference rooms, or we've read books, and you got charts on the wall that say, these are the 10 things we are, and it's very discreet. And if you really went around and asked people, not all 10 things were exactly being followed or lived on a daily basis. I kept it simpler to that, and it was really about accountability to each other, to our shareholders, to our customers. It was about transparency with each other to build the trust that is needed. And it was about using information, however that source of information is, whether it's internal or external, to drive our decision making. So 3 key things. So and I put it out there, I gave it to our management team, and that wasn't a yes/no question. If you didn't live by this, you weren't going to be following the culture that we needed I believed we needed as a company. And as a team. The good news is it was received well. They then could take it to their business units and extrapolate it differently. If they wanted to take those 3 principles and define it differently with 8 things that are important to them locally, great, go do it. But those 3 key things were that for let's call it my key team of 35, 40 people around the world, this was not yes, no. You will follow this. Now, of course, what happens is some people don't. Some people want to challenge it, go outside that box. They were not with the company for very long after that. And it took a while to get through that, but I'm proud to say, if you look at our Titan team now from 2019 to where we are today, 5 years later, it's exactly the same team as what it was 5 years ago. So with all the things that have gone on, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during the pandemic, that One Titan culture and environment has really lived through some pretty significant challenges. And I think it's a pretty good testament to a company our size, that we're able to keep us all together. And it's the exact same team from 5 years ago. And I think a lot of it is attributed to One Titan. Yeah. We can trust each other. We have that accountability to each other. We know our customers and our shareholders are important. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I was brilliant. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I think by keeping it simple, it allowed it to really come to life in a way that was meaningful for us.
And those 3 things are, I think, pillars in a strong relationship, in loyalty and in trust. You said that a couple different times. So first, that is, especially today, an achievement to have the same management team, I think, like for that period of time. But I think if you got the people on board that agreed with those principles, there's probably no better principles to keep a team together than those 3 things.
Completely agree with what you said. And I think that let me at least know that the principles that I had put out there were the right ones. And it's good to hear it from your perspective as well, just hearing it now, because that's important. If I have the wrong principles, then the team's going to have problems. And most importantly, I'm going to have problems. Right. I wouldn't be sitting here 11 years later if those principles weren't the right ones. But, we just acquired a company. It was about 60 days ago, and I did notice all their locations I've been to have a lot of corporate slogans around the conference room, and I'll be honest with you, it's bothered me. And I've kind of dug into it and said, okay, what are the ones that are important? Because when I see too many, you're just putting stuff on the wall. Yeah. And what I really found out is they said all the things you see in the conference room were just there for the CEO. That's not who we are. Nobody would speak up to the CEO, so they just stayed in place. But they had very simple, what they called associate values, that when you onboarded with the company, you presented them to all new employees. And I read those and I said, these these are it. These are really good.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, great, because that's who we are. Ignore everything else you see in the conference room. And so it kind of, again, leads credence to the fact if you just keep it simple and it's something that everybody can get their arms around, it does have a higher chance of success.
Yeah, I like that. So I know you've got multiple locations. We're here in Chicagoland. Let's talk about the headquarters that's in West Chicago, a suburb of Chicago. You had made a decision to move there from where?
Quincy, Illinois.
From Quincy, which is a town outside. It's in Illinois, but it's not Chicagoland.
No,
Right.
It would be 90 miles north of St. Louis near Hannibal, Missouri.
Mm-hmm. What was that decision like? Because, I think we've talked about people. We'll continue to talk about people. They're number one. And that decision was probably based off of people, but it also had something to do with location and place. So talk me through that thought process a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question, George. And it's something that was a monumental step in the history of our company. And I knew it was a big step. Moving corporate headquarters is hard. And I had spoken to some folks who had done it before we made this decision, and they reminded me it's hard. This is at the CEO level. You're going to be living this for 2 years. So we had reached a point as a publicly traded company, we needed stronger financial talent. That you can't not meet the requirements of SEC or be borderline to meet the requirements of the SEC as a public company. It becomes a big distraction to the business. Our board has said, look, we can't get the right people in Quincy. Unfortunately, it's a community that if you have the right people there, they love it, they stay. But if you have to add or replace people, we were having a very difficult time. And so we were borderline with some of our SEC reporting and having issues. And so the board said headquarters has to move. We're not debating it. What became challenging for me is the first aspect, like I said, it's a hard process. But the second one was where do you do it? The board immediately said, let's go to North Carolina, Texas. They assumed the easy response was going to be a location like that. More talent, easily available, just go do it. I spent some time researching it. I said, that's not who we are. We were founded in Illinois, founded in Quincy. We are agriculture serving customer base, construction with Caterpillar in Illinois at the time. And I said, our culture of our company is critically important. Our culture is based upon the Midwest and the customers we have. Let's try to stay in Illinois. So we found a great location up in St. Charles, the west outskirt of Chicago. And we looked at Oak Brook, looked at some of the more primary centralized areas and said, let's go where the people that are there have families and they want to be there for a reason. Feeling that when they join a company like Titan, they're joining a family. And it's a little bit outside the commuting patterns and traffic of the city. And so we chose St. Charles. I chose St. Charles. I'm going to have to blame this on me because the board looked at me and said, you got to be out of your mind. You got to be out of your mind. And so then going back to what I'd heard from other CEOs, be prepared. It's going to be difficult. And it was. So I had the board telling me I'm out of my mind. And the first round of building a team in St. Charles went horribly. It's tough to take that culture and all those things I said out loud and make it happen in reality. And so the new people you bring in were not fitting in with the culture, and we were going down a deep, dark rabbit hole fast. And so we launched version 2, which is tough because now you have the board already on my shoulder saying, why did you stay in Illinois? And now the first version didn't work. So this is like 2015, 2016.
Okay.
So I can say this with a lot of history now behind us. By 2017, 2018, we'd gotten version 2 in place, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Nice. We love the team we have in St. Charles. We love the location in St. Charles. We're proud to be one of the few companies that has moved their headquarters from Illinois to Illinois. To be honest with you, I wish the state would give us more credit for that. It seems like the headlines are more about the negative things of companies moving out of Illinois. I do. It's one of my pitches that I am currently in the governor's ear saying we should get more credit. We have 2 plants here actually, we have 2 plants plus another small plant in Illinois. So technically you could say we have 3 plants in Illinois. Plus we have a headquarters that we kept a lot of employees in Quincy. So if you were in Quincy and you wanted to stay in Quincy, we left you there, going back to that hybrid work model. Created a headquarters in St. Charles. It's worked great. Board is totally satisfied with where we're at today. We don't ever talk about why we need to move back out of Illinois. I just wish Pritzker in his office and some folks would give us some positive PR. So I'll use this microphone today to put that out there. But we're really happy with the move to stay in Illinois, and it's worked out great.
I love St. Charles. I live there. So good decision, Paul.
Exactly. And that secretly, that was really the primary reason. But obviously, if you chose to live there, it does lead some credence to why we're there. It's a great family location. Restaurants are fantastic all around the area. But yeah, we're right near the airport, so it's technically West Chicago, but it's really St. Charles.
Oh, yeah. Well, good decision. And you say that corporate relocations are difficult. You weren't just going from one neighborhood in Chicago to another. You were going a distance, even though it was within Illinois, where it was going to disrupt the employees that you had on your team. So I also think it's admirable and lends itself to how committed you are to your values, that you did leave an option for the people that were still in Quincy. You didn't force them to leave or find a new job. I also think it goes back to your first answer about failing and being comfortable with failing and saying you're not giving up on it after the first time, because you were the one that said, I'm making the decision as the CEO, and everybody's going to say this was your doing after the first time it not working out, and sticking with it and now seeing some success with it. Congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, going back to that first question, it's hard. Failing is not easy, especially when you're failing in the eyes of others. But yeah, I'm glad I stuck with it. It'd been easy. It would have been a lot easier just to say, look, we're done. It didn't work. I could have blamed it on all kinds of other external factors, but we've built a great team of people in St. Charles. Absolutely great team. So
cool.
It's worked out well.
I'm going to look up your location and bike past it or something. Let's talk about innovation. You're a company with a rich history. You make a product that, the wheel's been around for a long time. I'm simplifying it, right? But talk to me about innovation in your world. I know with manufacturing, you look at, I think about the auto industry and what Tesla is doing, and becoming a tech company, not an automotive company. What does it look like for you and with your company? Is it important? Is it something that you actively try to promote? Talk to me about that.
Innovation's been really good for us and important to us, but it is different, like you said, with what we do. It's wheels and tires have been around. I couldn't even guess how long it's been around, but it's been around a long time. And so how you drive your innovation with a product that is very familiar and has been around for centuries is different. And also what makes it different is the OEMs in our space. They're driving innovation in tractors through technology. So how do we also drive innovation into their products with wheels and tires when that's not their primary focus? So we really have to do it two ways. I'll start with the more direct way, which is we got to understand how the equipment's being used. So we got to understand their end user, and that's where Titan, being solely focused on off-road wheels and tires. Others, it's a niche. For us, this is the only game we know. We've really dedicated the resources and built a great team that's connected to the end users. So we're getting information more rapidly, real time, directly from the end users. We use that then to drive our innovation. And that innovation it can be in changes with the wheel and tire, because we manufacture both. So one of the things I'll use an example is just, if you look at an old pickup truck, if you go back not that long ago, relatively speaking, 25 years ago, you'll see the wheel and the sidewall are almost the same size.
Okay.
And if you think about all the air that's in there, the old pickup trucks, if you remember, they used to be used primarily for construction work because they would just bounce down the road. I guarantee you, if the wheel and the tire didn't change, we wouldn't be driving SUVs and pickup trucks the way we do today. Because your kids would be flying off the ceiling, even with a seatbelt on. So we have taken, because we can do the wheel and tire, we've shrunk the sidewall and increased the size of the wheel, just like you see on an SUV tire. If you look at that closely, that sidewall is now really narrow. Well, just imagine doing that on a tire that's 5 feet wide and 5 feet tall, going on the world's largest agriculture equipment that weighs thousands and thousands
Sure.
of pounds going on very difficult conditions of wet terrain, sticky, sloppy fields, but also at steep
Slopes,
angles.
yeah.
And by having that low sidewall, you get better comfort. That's stating the obvious, just like you do in your SUV, but you're also getting better fuel, better fuel efficiency. You're getting better performance because you're able to reduce the PSI on that tire. So instead of it being filled with air, you can reduce that PSI really low in the 10 to 14 range.
Wow.
And so you're gonna get better traction. You're gonna get that comfortable ride because the tire is got a smaller sidewall, so it's not loping and bouncing. But you're also going to get, the most important thing is you're going to get reduced soil compaction. So for a farmer, the most valuable asset they own is their land. Well, if you can bring this massively new equipment, this massive equipment that's got all this new technology that all the OEMs are really concerned about, but if you can bring it into the field and have tires and wheels that perform better and also save your ground, it's a pretty good combination.
Yeah.
So there's this technology that we've been able to, by connecting to the end users, we had to go to the end users with this. You don't go to an OEM and say, hey, by the way, I want you to change all your wheels and tires. You got to go build it through the end users. So if you go to Titan's website, you'll see we have hundreds of testimonials. I don't know how many we have on our website, just telling you everything that I just said to you about the LSW's performance. So from there, then that drives the innovation with the OEMs. So now the OEMs go, okay, now we'll take it. But because we make the wheel and the tire, we can do things that are more innovative. We do it with different tread patterns, like the R14, where we take multiple tires and wheels that end users have to buy. We're able to consolidate it into one innovative tread pattern. So now you only need one wheel and tire. But again, we're able to do that because we do both the wheel and tire. If you're only a tire manufacturer and I'm a wheel manufacturer, and somehow you and I got to agree on innovation, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
But when all we got to do is talk to each other, we're able to do some pretty cool innovation. So
cool.
But it really starts with understanding the end user. So you have to be patient.
Yeah.
The OEMs don't come to us because they don't have wheel and tire engineers. They're doing their engineers are working on technology, like you said, where they should be. So we have to bring the innovation to them, which again, you just don't knock on their door and say, here it is. You got to build it up, the credibility through the end users.
Cool. I'm going back to your tennis match where you had that point. That kind of
it was a great moment. Thanks for reliving it.
I didn't know about it until today, but talk to me a little bit about challenge. About you just talked about some change in a basic, in the wheel, which is very cool. And we talked about some successes that you've had, but you've also talked about some challenges. So as a CEO for a large company, I would consider Titan to be a lot of employees, a lot of people you look after, shareholders, responsibilities. What are the things that kind of keep you up at night?
One of the big challenges is that the world is changing and moving really fast. And so every day you wake up, you're trying to really get caught up and understand what's going on just for that day. So you think about when information and change used to travel slower, you had more time to get your arms around it. And now I feel like for myself and our team, it's a daily battle. Like what is going on now? We hear about it a lot from a social media perspective with kids. I got a 22-year-old and 18-year-old. They live in a world completely different than obviously what I grew up in. And they're exposed to a lot more information on a daily basis that I could even comprehend when I was their age. But I also think we need to look at that from the adult perspective at work. So the stress it's causing for kids with social media would also creates a lot of stress for adults coming into work every day going, I used to be able to feel pretty secure and comfortable going, if I do something a certain way for a period of time, I don't have to worry about changing it. Now you have no idea when change is going to come at you. And so you have to create an environment where I think it does go back to, again, my tennis match example, that losing is not the end of the world. When you're dealing with this much change and uncertainty, you're going to have to step out there and sometimes you're just going to be wrong. And so one of the things I do say to my team quite often, and a couple of my folks have repeated to me, which is good, is fail fast. And I got to support them with that. What I won't support them is fail and not know you failed and then keep failing. If you fail fast, great. Tell me why you failed. Let's move on. And I've been very supportive of a culture of that. But as fast as the world is moving today, you can't be stressed about change and you can't be stressed about failure. Got to accept it and learn with it. And then 35 years later, somebody reminds you about this tennis point where you screwed up and lost the match for your whole team, and you just got to live with it.
I'm part of our leadership team here, and as you enter new levels of leadership, you experience more opportunities to solve problems, or more problems present themselves, and there's less people above you to fix them. So I've noticed that whether it's HR things or just or client things to solve, it just seems like the day can be consumed with figuring out, with sometimes putting out fires. How do you prioritize? I think what you just said was fail fast, but don't just keep failing over and over and over again. Learn from it and hopefully come up with a solution so that it's not repeated failure. From your perspective, how do you kind of prioritize where to spend your mind resource?
You understand it from your perspective, and it's something I don't think you ever get right.
Okay.
It's a puzzle that can't be solved. And you mentioned liking to bike. I look at it in that regard as you have to balance your energy. You only have so much energy, and every day there's a problem. There's going to be a failure in business. There's going to be a failure with people. There's going to be a problem with a customer. There's going to be some issue going on around the world. There's problems every single day. And if all you do is sit there and absorb every problem without a way to deflect it and take your mind off it, having a decade of experience at this, like you were saying, you gotta figure out a way to balance it. Otherwise, you're not going to be effective in making the right decisions. Right. You're going to be stressed, and you're not going to set the right tone as a leader. And so, I'm sure when you're biking, at times you're enjoying being out there and experiencing nature and great weather, and at times you're stressed thinking about something going on at work. And but it's nice to handle it while you're biking versus sitting cooped up in an office going, "Oh my God, here's another problem." And so, I think I've just learned to accept, and I've said this many times, probably more to my wife than my team, that there's problems everywhere. Every day there's people issues. You don't know where they're going to be, so you try to keep some slack in your calendar. What I do is when I travel and I'm out to our locations frequently, I dedicate the whole day to being there for them. So if I'm in an office, my meetings will be focused on what's going on in that particular area, whether it's a corporate office or a plant, and they control my schedule. But then when I'm in my own office, that's when I'll figure out, I'll do the thinking time. So you need a way to have your thinking time to balance all the problems that are coming at you. So I do set aside days. What I don't want to do is have my team think they're not the most important people to me when I'm there. When I'm there, it's them. I was in Italy a couple of weeks ago for a few days, and every single day from 7 in the morning till 10 at night was them. So I'm going to fall behind on other work. That's fine. But you got to find your cadence. You got to find your balance, and you got to realize you got to have slack in your schedule somewhere to deal with problems. And it might be biking for you or something else for somebody, where you're clearing your mind and you're going, okay, I do have 146 problems, but I can only tackle maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah. And I think also going back to those values and creating relationships founded on trust within your organization, that can't hurt, because it's easier to come up with solutions and to mitigate some of this change and challenge if you're surrounded by people that you can count on, that are accountable and that you trust, compared to those that you don't. And that's one of the reasons why we're proponents of in-person working at least some of the time, because that strengthens those things.
You're 100% right. You got to have trust. You can't do anything I said without trust. If you don't have trust, good people around you, then guess what? Those 146 problems are all yours.
Yep, exactly.
And that time for biking is gone, because you're going to be doing nothing but firefighting. Yeah. So you're totally right. It starts with team, having good people around you that you trust. But you're spot on. In order to have that trust, to think you're not going to get it by working and being somehow in person together, I just don't know how it's possible.
Yeah.
And so again, I think we've found a world that does make sense at a lot of companies, but it does involve being together in person. You got to have a workplace.
Well, we could put a period on that and say cut. But I got a couple last questions for you, more on a personal level. You're obviously an accomplished leader. Has there been a resource that you've found valuable to you in your career that you could recommend to others? A book, a podcast, a networking group, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you do need to read. I mean, everybody's going to tell you that, no matter what level, what profession, or what you do, you have to read. The ones that have stuck with me, because I think it's more applicable to what you're going to encounter in real life, is somebody like Malcolm Gladwell. When you read his materials, it's like, okay, I read a chapter, even sometimes just a few pages, and you sit there thinking about it. And there's that real world application. Outliers is phenomenal. A guy like Adam Grant, he does a lot about more human psychology, talking about giving and taking, and I like books that maybe aren't the heaviest technical, but there's that real world application that come with it. I've read a lot about emotional intelligence. Has been really good because that, again, is something you can apply. The ones I avoid, I mean, I have them. They're on my shelf, but they can be tough reads, or even reads I don't get all the way through. The ones where it's kind of one person writing about things from their perspective, and this is why I was wonderful at this company in this situation. And you read it going, I mean, I read it, there's a book that came out by all these CEOs from McKinsey, and I was excited to get it. I know the folks at McKinsey, and I thought, man, it's going to be a great book, but it was so not applicable to Titan, to me. It was like large company CEOs that had done it in completely different industries, and all they did is tell you how they did it in their world. And to me, I think you need something that's more, and so guys, Malcolm Gladwell's never been a business leader, but his stuff's brilliant. Adam Grant's never been in business, but he's brilliant. Emotional intelligence is applicable to everybody. So I think that's good. I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Some of them are leadership podcasts, but this one is maybe a little bit different. It goes back to my love of sports. I listen to good sports podcasts. Guys like Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo. And the reason why I do it is, one, you need to be in tune with recent conversations. So when you're out with dinner and you're with people, you know what's going on. And it's difficult for me to read everything and read the ESPN updates all the time. So I know what's going on in the sports world, but what they do is they dive into it more from the human side, the team side, the coaching perspective. So they go to that next level. So you're getting the update on sports, but you're getting a deeper level of that applies to business and applies to people, really. Sports are people and business are people. And so I do listen to these sports podcasts that are, I think, very applicable for both.
Love it. That's great advice. You've got a new acquisition. You got a lot of change ahead. What's something you're excited for in the next 12 months?
I mean, the acquisition and those things are exciting, but this is maybe a little different way to look at it. Is every year I make a contract with myself. The job is draining. It's all encompassing. My wife makes a lot of sacrifices to pick up the slack for my job. And I look at it at the beginning of the year, am I excited for the challenges? Knowing that there's nothing in this world that's perfect. Like we were talking about earlier, there's challenges every day. And I don't think that's just now, that's been going on forever. But I look at it at the start of the year, go, am I just excited for the challenges, knowing that they're coming? And I am. I think that's important. I think you have to be excited for the challenges, the problems, the issues, the stuff that lays ahead. Because if you're not, and that becomes drudgery, then it's probably time you got to look at something different. And so, is it something specific to answer your question? Probably not. But I'm energized by the challenges that lie ahead. But more specifically, something we've touched on, I'm excited for the challenges that we have ahead with the team that we have. By having a good team in place, again, this group of people that we've worked closely together with for a long period of time, with everybody on the team, at least 5 years, as we bring new people into our team, 60 days into an acquisition that brought another couple thousand people to Titan, the cultures have melded together very well. And I think part of it is because we have a good culture at Titan. They had a good culture there. And so I'm excited about that, but also knowing there's challenges there. Let's be honest. There's people, there's going to be challenges. And so I'm excited about the acquisition. I'm excited about our teams, the way they're coming together, but also realizing I got to look forward to the challenges that are coming as well.
I think that's really wise. I think that's a cool barometer to set for yourself. I'm sure you're not excited about every challenge or every single day of challenges, but as a whole, saying for this year, is this something I'm looking forward to tackling? Am I going to enjoy the ride, not just the destination? I think that's really cool. Advice to future leaders. I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you, but if you were retiring, what's something that you'd say?
If you want to be a leader at anything, okay, it can be a leader of a department, it can be a leader of a company, it can be a leader of a local non-for-profit, it doesn't matter. You really have to be committed to it, but you also have to have your people around you committed to doing it, because somebody has to make a sacrifice. You don't become a leader and a successful leader and also a leader for a duration of time, because it's one thing to get there, it's another thing to stay there, but you also have to have the right support. And so for me, my advice for future leaders is have the right support in place. If you're going to be a successful leader, you have to have a good support team that keeps you in check. And I've learned this from some really smart people, but I've also seen some really smart, successful people on paper that I've gotten to see up close and personal be utter failures because their ego and their mind just gets off in a whole different direction. And so I've been lucky. Some of the mentors I've had in place have said, you got to have somebody that keeps you in check, keeps you in balance, tells you when you're an idiot, when you're a fool, period.
That has the ability to tell you that, and that you're also able to listen to. Right? It's good advice.
You got to have it. And I learned that from some smart people. I've seen the failures of some smart people. And I do. I'm very fortunate. I have that in my wife. I have that. Our chairman of our board is really good at that. And I got people around me at work that do that as well. And I think if you approach what you're getting to leadership with that mindset, and then just keep your eyes wide open and constantly learning. To me, this is still shocking. When I became CFO of a public company, in my mind, I'm like, I know so much. I got this world figured out. And then you do it for a few years and you get in your routine and you're like, I got this. And then when I became president and then CEO now, I think I've had to rewrite probably 90% what's in my brain. And I think I'm still shocked by that to this day. And I think that's how you can stay in the job for a long time, is you got to keep your eyes wide open and keep learning. And at a point in my life 10 years ago where I thought I knew a lot, I realized I knew nothing. And now I look at myself today going, you still know nothing. And you got to wake up every day like you know nothing and keep that same mindset. And so really I hope we don't get there. You hear it with younger kids these days. I have some of myself at home. They want to get to this destination fast. And then when they get to the destination, get the sensation that they're there. I think it's the other way around. If you want to be a leader and you want to have duration as being a leader, you're going to have to figure out how to be comfortable never getting to that destination. There is no destination. You're always learning. It's always changing. And I think for me, it's been the biggest shock. And now I just realize, man, I don't know anything and I got to go keep learning. You could ask Paul Reitz 10 years ago, hate using myself in third person like that, but if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have given you a totally different answer. And so I just hope kids these days, and I try to install it in my own kids, just keep learning. You're never going to get to that destination.
Well, Paul, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've enjoyed getting to know you and your company. So thank you again for being here. Thanks for the insight. Excited to share your story with our audience when this releases.
Appreciate it, George. It's great seeing you today, and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to rate our show. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Work Inspired podcast so that you don't miss any of the incredible guests we have planned for upcoming episodes. We'll continue to find the best and brightest minds in business so that you can learn, grow, and succeed, and so that we can all work inspired. Work Inspired is brought to you by BOS, a leader in commercial working environments and a Hayworth best-in-class dealership. Experience our 360 approach and discover the team, tools, and techniques required to navigate the complexity of your next workspace at BOS.com. If you have ideas, feedback, or would like to be featured on our show, please email podcast@BOS.com. Thank you for listening. This has been a Workspace digital production. If you're interested in launching a podcast at your organization, please email info@workspace.digital for a free consultation.